Hello, everyone, and welcome to WP Roundtable. My name is Jason Crawford, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia. I do things cooler than Kyle, and that's my intro.
Yes, you do, Jason. So many things. Hi, guys. My name's Kyle. Welcome to episode 89. It's pretty exciting to be here, and we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about with our excellent guest, Mr. Jon Brown from 9Seeds. Jon, how you doing this fine evening?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
It's a real pleasure to have you join us. I've been very much looking forward to our discussion. So before we get started into learning all about Jon and everything that he does, we're going to cover our quick picks of the week real fast. So I've got just a couple real quick things that I want to share with you guys. Number one, I've been reading some cool articles, and I just read about this interesting track ticket. Weston Reader put a track ticket number 35669 if you're somebody who follows WordPress core track. He's proposing that we consider, or that core developers consider, storing widgets in a custom post type instead of options. So developers, you may be familiar with the system used to store widgets. It's been the same for a very long time, but he makes a compelling case for migrating to just a different methodology for that, which I think is pretty intense. But at the same time, pretty darn cool. There's a good case for this, and it would come with a lot of cool enhancements, mostly from a developer perspective, which I think is awesome. And the only other thing that I want to plug today is my good buddy Adam Silver, who says hello, Jon, by the way.
Right on.
He texted me to say hi to Jon. Just had his 100th episode of Kitchen Sink WP podcast, which is a great show. I recommend everybody check it out and subscribe to it and listen to his show. He just announced on his show the winners of his 100th episode raffle, which was pretty big. He gave away a lot of really exciting stuff, and one of the winners actually was a former panelist on the show, Mr. Rich Robinkoff, which was so congratulations to him, and a bunch of other people that I don't know, which is pretty cool. So check out the podcast, and congrats to anybody who won. Jason?
My pick of the week is this giant carrot. And if James Dahlman is watching at any point, this is going to be my cover of concealment the next time we run into each other.
Only in.
Also, a special pick of the week just for Kyle, Jack Spirko from the survivalpodcast.com is doing a mead of the week. So for 52 weeks, he's going to do a different mead every week. So I thought that would be something you might get kicked out of. That's not a podcast you listen to. But he's going to be doing it on YouTube.
Are there that many meats? There's.
It's news to me.
Like unique meats, I guess. I'm not really the meat expert, but I could be in 52 weeks if I watched it.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. If that's your goal in life, then this is your opportunity. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. I'll have to take a look, and it's flattering that that's how you think of me. So, Jon, do you have anything you want to share with us?
You put me on the spot. I forgot that I was supposed to come up with a pick of the week, but if I have to throw something out there, we've started working a lot more with Flexbox lately, and I've got to give props to 10up. They just released a kind of a polyfill JavaScript library that makes Flexbox, if you're a front-end dev, you'll love Flexbox, work with older versions of IE. And it kind of means that we can finally start using Flexbox without worrying about backwards compatibility to other stuff. Like even IE10, if I remember right, doesn't support Flexbox properly. So it's up on GitHub, but it's flexibility. Just started using it, so I can't really say that it's amazing and well tested, but it seems to work. Giving you Flexbox goodness in IE. So that's kind of a cool thing.
That's really cool. I saw that popping up around all over the place, and just the description sounded awesome. Haven't had a chance to check it out, but probably I should.
If I can do a twofer, the other thing that I gave props to is the meta fields API that Core plugin is finally working on, is in beta, and people should check it out. It's a little bit beyond me to figure out how to make use of their API without some kind of a library on top of it, but I'm really stoked we're finally standardizing the way we create custom fields and stuff, because between all the options frameworks and ACF and CMV2 and everything else, kind of doing things, the underlying things differently, it's nice to see some standardization happening there.
Yeah, I've always been struck by that discussion. It seems like such a powerful way to make a significant impact on the platform by just revamping that system and making it a lot more. I mean, just the platform has grown so much that this is completely necessary and a valid project.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as custom post types became a thing, like we needed this. Like this was the next thing we needed to have really flexible custom content types. And that it's taken this long to get there is frustrating, but on the other hand, like it's a complicated thing to tackle. So.
Yeah, it really is, and it probably only expounds and gets more complicated over time. But it is an interesting thing, the way that what was interesting and edge case use cases 3-4 years ago are now completely standard. So anyway, thanks for sharing that, Jon.
Sure.
All right, so let's learn a little bit more about our special guest here. So, Jon, if you wouldn't mind, we want to go back to the beginning a little bit and give our audience the story of Jon Brown. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started working on the web professionally, and how did you get there?
Well, it's an interesting story, actually, I think. So I'm 42 years old, going on 43 here next month. And I literally started programming before I was 10 years old, so back in the early 80s. And I loved computers and programming, and played around with it through my teenage years. And in high school, basically, was looking at the landscape of what a programming career looked like back then. And it was basements with fluorescent lights and giant mainframes and computers. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like, I was a pretty outdoorsy, athletic guy. And so I shifted my focus to engineering, and went to school for engineering, graduated from engineering, and worked as a civil engineer for 10 years in the land development industry in Southern California. And I did some kind of hobby programming and Lisp for AutoCAD and stuff like that, but nothing serious. And after 10 years of that, was burned out and wanted to travel again. After a kind of a post-graduation month around Europe, I was hooked. Just took me 10 years of planning to get free of the engineering career, which I liked. I loved the people I worked with, but just didn't provide the lifestyle I wanted in terms of being able to free to move around the globe a little bit more. And so decided to try a hand at photography. Photography is fantastic, and anybody who can make a living at that is awesome, but it requires a lot of sales, and I didn't want to do that. So one of my photography clients turned into a web client who said, I've heard WordPress is this really cool thing, and I need a new website. Do you think you can figure that out? And I was smart and took the opportunity and said, I can totally figure that out. I don't know how long it'll take, but I can do it. I'm sure I can figure it out. And built that site over the course of about 6 weeks or so. Really simple blog for a lapel pin company, of all things. They just needed a marketing blog. And one client turned into another, and within a few months, I basically quit doing photography work because web work paid so much better and was so much easier for me to manage as a business. And that finally transitioned into a location-independent lifestyle where I could do web work anywhere I wanted. And almost how many years later now? That would have been 2009, so about 6 years later. Brings us to now, where now I run an agency, small agency, but do that, still do development, like programming when I can, and love it. Just love it because it's got the lifestyle and freedom I like. So, is that a long enough answer for you?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So when you got started with WordPress, did you do any web work prior to that at all with any other systems?
No, like I remember the first website I ever built was back in college, maybe freshman year, and it used this amazing new technology called HTML frames. And this is where you could literally grid out your HTML into like different scroll bars on the same screen.
Those are amazing.
And that was the first website I ever built. It was like my own little personal website, but it used HTML frames. And what's funny about that is that it's one of those things. I put it up on an ISP called 4DNet, which is like this brand new ISP in Southern California, back in the dial-up days, around Earthlink and all that other stuff was going around. And I canceled my account with them like a year later but that website actually stayed up for about 4 or 5 years after I canceled that account. Because if you had Googled my name back then, and back then it would have been like Lycos, Alta Vista, whatever. But if you'd search for it, you could have found me on that website, even though I didn't have an account with them for 5 years. It was still up and live as static HTML. And I wish I could go find it again today because it was great. Total sliding frames.
Those were so great.
I think it was I don't remember the spec number, but I think it was HTML 1.1 or something.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't do anything with the web for nothing serious with the web until about 2009, where I found WordPress and came into that.
So I find that kind of interesting. You started using WordPress, and you have a extensive background in programming that you said. So did you get to flex any of those muscles very much, or how long was it before you were actually digging into code and really using those old skills? Yeah. So as soon as I got interested in WordPress kind of professionally, was immediately into code, but just PHP, PHP, HTML, CSS kind of stuff. But I should back up. Kind of one of the places where WordPress came from was when I left engineering. I did a year trip, kind of not around the world, but all over America and Asia, and I started a travel blog on WordPress.com, and that I kind of maintained for a few months, and then realized I wasn't a very good blogger. I'd get behind and I wouldn't want to post anything because I was I can't post about this. This is from 4 months ago. I don't even remember what I want to post about now, and I wanted it to be all chronological. But that was where I really started with WordPress, was WordPress.com in 2006 with the travel blog. And then it wasn't until a few years later that I got this opportunity to build a website on it. And then it was I got a theme. I think back then somebody recommended Thesis, which is now a verboten word in some circles. I switched to Genesis a few years later, but anyway, right away, started kind of hacking around with snippets of PHP and stuff, but it wasn't hardcore programming. Didn't get into that for a lot longer, because I kind of had to relearn it all. For me, in 2009, when I got into PHP, I had no concept of object-oriented programming or MVC at all. What I had done as a hobby 10 years before was before any of that existed, right? So coming back into it, I remember just acronym overload and people talking about all these technologies, and I don't know, I remember for loops and stuff, but the whole concept of object-oriented anything or MVC frameworks or anything else was completely foreign to me when I came back into WordPress. That's a long time to take a break from it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of one of the things I love about the industry is that it's perpetually changing. I like perpetually learning. That's part of the things that really drives me and keeps me interested in it, is it's constantly changing. To me, that's a really good thing.
I agree. And it's kind of interesting that so many of us, dive into that in different ways. I think a lot of, myself and many other developers that I know, maybe some had somewhat of a computer science background, and others, reluctantly found the slippery slope that took them into it, where it was a plug and play, point and click solution that was great, but eventually they just found themselves having to use the code, and it grew on them. But which was the case for myself, but in your case, just a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. The last time I took a class, a proper, educational institution class in programming, it was Fortran. That was for engineering. And it was on a VAX workstation this would have been early 90s, 94, 95. Since then, it's all self-taught, right? There's so many resources out there to self-teach these days that weren't around back then, but now, it's Code School, Code Academy, all of the free stuff that's out there, the lynda.coms of the world, it's a different thing. You can self-teach yourself almost anything these days.
So true.
Well, that's actually, since you're bringing that up, if you were starting right now, what would you self-teach? And how would you go about doing it?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, the answer at the moment is like just learn JavaScript, right? But I don't know. I think JavaScript's a horrible language. Like it's great. It's amazing what you can do with it. But man, it is one of those things that's just been hammered left and right for 20 years into this just mess of things between all the new stuff. And, but no, I'd say just if you're self-teaching, take it slow. Make a little project, do that. Take a little project, do another one. Like one of the things I've always found is like I know personally, anytime I see a giant project and I don't break it into smaller steps, I get halfway through it and I get frustrated because I don't know where I'm going with it. I don't know that I'm making any progress towards this end goal. And so it's one of the things I've talked to staff about is like just find little tiny goals that you can accomplish, because once you can accomplish those little goals, you stay motivated, right? Like it's like, okay, I checked that off. It's not something I'm good at. It's just something I found helps me. Breaking things into little goals is not necessarily always easy. But I don't know, Jason, to your question specifically, what would I learn? It's hard because you want to learn like the very cutting edge of everything. But I think that really where you want to start is backed off a little bit from that. So if you see things like the most cutting edge of technologies that are out there if you're doing web dev, like it's Webpack and it's Flexbox stuff and it's ECMA 6 and Babel and all of these things, don't feel like you need to learn those things very first. But also don't like waste your time learning HTML and CSS 1 or whatever you call it, CSS 2. Like you know, it's kind of finding what's mainstream right now and learning that stuff.
Great, thanks.
So tell us a little bit about some of these early clients that you were serving. I'm kind of curious, what kind of businesses they were, how they found you, and one of the things that I've observed in my business is how the early clients just have this interesting effect on the path that unfolds for you as you go. And I'm curious, what your thoughts are looking back on how some of those early projects really influenced the direction that you ultimately took.
That's a really interesting question because, yeah, I think that the clients that come at you are all opportunities, and you kind of have to pick which ones you pursue. And you see people who end up specializing in certain niches, and it's only because they had one client in that niche. And in this industry, like referrals and reputation are so important. People ask us all the time where we market. Like, we really don't. We just get referral after referral after referral. To the point, like, it's interesting. We have a bunch of like attorney, lawyer, nonprofit like boards and stuff as clients these days. A couple of media clients. But early on, one of the things that I realized was I really wanted to help out small businesses, right? Like when I very first started out, I had this kinship with them, and I'm like, I'm to help the small business, and I'm to be their partner, and I'm to build this website for $400 because that's what they need. And I kind of had this mantra of trying to make technology easy for people who found it completely foreign. The problem became like those people, while they were motivating in terms of like I really was passionate about it, they were exhausting in terms of there's no way to sustain that level of passionate input to dollars given back. And so, like, I had some peers in the industry, and the WordPress community in large, I owe so much to, like Meetups and WordCamps, who really kind of coached me to keep growing in the early days. Because I just kind of started doubling budgets and moving up the pay scale and realizing that gave me a lot more opportunity to spend time delivering a better product and treating clients better, because I wasn't kind of scrapping between clients. I could focus a little bit more. But yeah, it's I would say that is moving up's not a bad thing. You kind of got to do what you got to do when you start out, cost-wise and stuff. But don't be afraid to ask for a little bit more money.
Yeah, I think it's so true. It's an interesting thing that I've been coming more and more to terms with. As my business grows and I meet and interact with more people in the industry, you can learn all about what the experts do and what everybody says. These are the things that work for me, and ask all the questions about how can I get where I want to go. But the truth is, pretty much we've all got to do our time, do our projects, build one after the other, and continue to raise our prices and continue to grow over time. And there's not much of a shortcut.
Yeah, and I think part of that is understanding, like, at no point are we exploiting our clients by raising prices. We're giving them the opportunity to have a higher quality product delivered, right? Like, I think that people think, like, oh, I'm going to deliver the same site for $5,000 that I did for $500. Well, it's not really how it works, right? Like, that would be exploitive, and that happens every once in a while, but mostly it's like, look, this is the site that I think you need, and I think will deliver for you, and that's what I'll build you. And this is how much it would cost to have me do it. If you don't want me to do it, then go hire somebody else. And one of the things is I see so many people coming into the industry who don't realize that it's totally fine to spend a few minutes with a client and then send them off to somebody else. Like, they're not a good fit for you. Don't feel like you have to bend to every client's needs. Somebody else might be a much better fit. And that comes to technologies, too. I mean, how many times did I get asked and still get asked, can you do this random thing? And I'm like, I have no idea anything about the thing you're asking me to do. Let me explain that we focus exclusively on WordPress-related development. Like, 9Seeds as a company does custom WordPress dev. We do a ton of custom theme dev, but we kind of specialize in API integrations with third parties and things like that. Things that require some custom PHP development above and beyond just kind of your standard stuff. And, like, we get so many people who come to us and they're like, oh, you guys built the Chargeify plugin for Chargeify. Can you help me integrate it with my whatever bizarre platform? And we're like, no, because we built the WordPress plugin for Chargeify. We help support that. We've done a bunch of integrations with that. But no, we don't know how to integrate that with .NET Nuke or whatever random thing you've got. We're not the right consultant for that.
So I'm going to ask, where'd the name come from? 9Seeds.
Oh, so the history of 9Seeds. 9Seeds, it means nothing. It's just a name that the founders of 9Seeds came up with, which is an interesting point. So 9Seeds was actually founded by John Hawkins and Shane Sanderson and Todd Hush in, I get the year wrong, 2008. No, not 2008. 8 years ago? Yes, that's 2008. And I didn't come into the mix until a few years later. And I originally came in as a contractor. John, Shane, and Todd had gone off to do their own thing, and John was looking for somebody else to help out and hired me right after I moved to Hawaii. And after a couple years of contracting, I shut down my own little one-person shop called J. Brown Studios. There's still a website out there for it, which I should redirect to 9Seeds. And then a few years later, I entered 9Seeds as a partner, and then a few years later, John left 9Seeds as a partner to work for a startup. And because he kind of burnt out on the industry, I think, after 20 years in web dev for him, was ready to try do other things. And now it's just me. So.
Fascinating.
But the name 9Seeds, I joke with people. I'm like, I'm still trying to get to 9 employees, so I can say that it's like our employee count, but we never quite get to 9. We get close, and then we lose a couple. We'd love to hire a couple more people, either as contractors or full-time. It's hard in this industry to find good fit with time and ability and all that. So I think that's been the case in the last couple of years. All the big agencies, the crowd favorites, the 10ups, the web dev studios, all those guys are automatic, are in perpetual hiring, right? They're like, well, we're hiring, and they kind of have to be because it's hard to fill the spots, with the talent pool you want. And so many people, I think, are like myself, where it's lifestyle is really important. So for me, I couldn't imagine working for somebody who I was beholden to, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, in a particular time zone. These are not things that really work for me. So 9Seeds works on a very flexible schedule. Like, we have people, they get their work done. Some people are really adamant, like, no, I work from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Like, that's okay, but I really don't care as long as the job gets done. Like, you don't need to report your hours to me that way. Like, so I think that there's more and more companies out there that are flexible like that. And I mean, I think that Automatic is a great example of that. Like, they have digital nomads roaming the planet as well. People setting their own schedules. I think a lot of companies have obviously embraced that. It's not that hard to find, but yeah.
Well, then, what is a day for you like?
Days for me, they're long. Like, so having lost business partners, like, there's a lot of work to do to run 9Seeds. We don't have the most efficient of processes. I'm trying to streamline them a little bit, but no, I get up in the morning. I'm usually awake by, like, depending on where I am, I'm awake by about 7. Read an iPad, like, in bed for an hour because I can. I like to read the news in the morning. And then immediately, like, get up, make a cup of coffee, grab some breakfast. I really like making the hot breakfast in the morning. I'm weird that way. And sit down to work and work most of the day. And that's checking with the team, seeing how people are doing, and then putting out a bunch of fires, because there always are. You have a pretty diverse client base, and there's always kind of something going on that needs to happen right away. And that always tends to fall to me, kind of goes to the top, and that way other people can stay focused on whatever they've been scheduled for. I spend way more time than I'd like in Asana and in email. I had a project the last couple of weeks where helping out another agency, and got to do a whole lot of programming, like mostly front-end dev work. But it was fun because I was like, oh my god, I get to, like, spend 5 hours a day writing code again. I spend very little time doing that as much as I like. And then in the 9Seeds world, I do a lot of our DevOps type stuff. I'm by far not a great DevOps guy, just more so than a lot of us. Todd can do some of it too, but so when we have stuff that's hack cleanup or configuring servers and stuff, that tends to fall to me. So I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty diverse day. Usually do a couple lead calls a day, talk to a client or two. But it's mostly email. Like, not that I want that. I hired a project manager a few months ago to take a lot of that off, and he has been fantastic at helping that stuff. Keeping people on schedule and responding to a lot of the email that I just didn't have time. Like, I was getting to the end of the day, and I'm like, my inbox is as full as it was when I woke up in the morning, and I just can't. So project manager helps out with that a lot. Especially, like, kind of, we're flexible, so he's PM plus some biz dev help, stuff like that. So.
Nice.
And then, like, the more interesting part of that's the boring answer. So I think, like, Jason and I were talking about this before the show, is that I'm a digital nomad. We now spend 6 to 9 months out of the year traveling around the world, and depending on the city we're in, we work Monday through Friday. Like, we'll rent an Airbnb for a month or two. Monday through Friday, if there's a co-working space around, I love co-working spaces. I go to those all the time. But if there's not, we work from home. My wife and I, we don't work together. Just we both kind of work online. But we tend to take a break in the evening or in the morning and go out to breakfast. Like, we're big go out to eat people wherever we are. And around the world, that tends to be much cheaper than here in the States where I am now. But that tends to be it. It's like a nice breakfast with each other, and sit down and work 8 to 12 hours, depending on the day. And then out to dinner. We're not big partiers. We don't go out clubbing wherever we are, or discotheques or anything like that. But enjoy food a lot wherever we are. And then kind of try to do the touristy stuff on the weekends when we're in other countries. But not the big touristy stuff. Like, we've grown tired of the big touristy stuff. Like, I joke, like, if I went to Paris today, I probably wouldn't go see the Eiffel Tower. In truth, I did that a long time ago. But it's kind of like, there's so many big touristy things, and I've seen so many of them. I don't want to say I'm jaded, just, we go to a museum or two here or there. We go to a tourist site here or there, but we never try to see all of the things in one place, like we used to a long time ago. It's like, oh, you gotta go see, in Paris you'd be like, you have to see the Louvre, you have to see, the Arc de Triomphe, you have to see the Eiffel Tower, you have to go up to, what is the big white thing? Sacre Bleu? No, I forget. But now it's like, hey, it'd be really nice if we went and saw that one thing this weekend and go do that. So,
nice.
So, I don't know. That's kind of a typical day. Kind of. It's such a loaded question.
So my wife and I are interested in traveling a little bit more. We're trying to find some more destinations to go, and see some interesting things. It's become a new interest of ours. What are some things that you think we should hit up for new travelers?
Wow. That's so hard to answer, actually. No, I mean, it kind of depends on what you enjoy, right? Like, so my wife and I, we just got married a few months ago, and we went to Cuba for our honeymoon, and spent a couple weeks in Cuba. And one of those weeks we spent at an all-inclusive resort on the north of Cuba, like this beautiful white sand beach, Caribbean Ocean, doing nothing but like drinking Cuba Libres and Cubatas, floating around in pools. It's not our thing to do that. Like, we're very much like, let's go to the city and go out to dinner a whole lot. But we did that whole like traditional week off vacation thing, and it was great. But it's not really our thing. It's the kind of thing we'll do every 5-10 years. So to give people advice on where they should travel is really hard, because it kind of comes down to like, what do you think you'd enjoy? Food, sites, the people. Like, I love the people. Like, I love talking to people everywhere I go. Like, I like getting to know local people's stories. That's always what kind of drives me at this point is meeting, it's cliche, but taxi drivers and waiters and waitresses and baristas and shop owners and just whomever, and seeing where those stories go. But as far as where you and your wife should go to explore, the one thing I'd say is go slow. Like, the thing I see so many, especially Americans, do is they think of a 7-day vacation as 21 opportunities to do something. And they're like, okay, we got 7 days, so breakfast we're going to do this, lunchtime we're going to do this, dinner we're going to do this. And they literally plan out like 3 things a day for 7 days, and then they come home exhausted. And then I tell them about, like, being in Thailand and finding out that there's this giant elephant festival going on next weekend, and changing my plans to go there. By going slow and not having plans, you kind of get to adapt to what's going on around you. And if you're on like a 7-day window where you're like, oh, I've only got these days, I totally get it. You've got to make the most of those days. But if you have a career like we do, where conceivably you can do it from anywhere that has Wi-Fi, it lets you kind of do what we do, even if it's only for a few weeks or a month. And you'd be surprised. The cost of being in most countries for a month isn't much different than the cost of being in that country for a week. Like, people think about it from the standpoint of, oh, well, it'd be so much more expensive. I'm like, no, because you don't have to rent a hotel room for 4 nights. You can go get an Airbnb for a month for the same price. And like with Airbnb and VRBO and things like that, like, you start seeing discounts after a 2-week booking. So, and then if you're not thinking from the standpoint of, oh, I'm going to spend $200 a day on activities, then suddenly, like, some of your days are $20 days. And as you stretch that out, it gets a lot easier to go travel places longer. Frankly, the hard thing becomes what I saw just ran through your door, is dealing with the things back home, right? Like the dogs. If you have kids, the kids. Although you should drag your kids around the world. Everybody should. I don't have kids, but parents, drag your kids around the world. It's not the end of the world. Way easier to travel with kids than pets. I looked at that. I had a dog for a long time, and tried to look into like what would it be like to try to move my dog to Thailand or Indonesia or wherever. It's like, yeah, no. So hard. I moved my dog from California to Hawaii, and that was a huge ordeal. But, yeah.
Well, where would you say if you could go anywhere, which you pretty much can, but pick one spot. It was your next destination would be your last destination. Where would it be?
That's hard. First, I have to say, I say this all the time. There is nowhere on this planet I don't want to go. There are just places I don't want to go right now. Like, I don't want to go to Syria right now. I still don't want to go to Somalia right now. These are places I would love to go someday, but just not right now. Coming up my list very high right now is getting to Africa. I've never been anywhere in Africa. And the two places that have really come up on my radar are Cape Town, South Africa, and Morocco. So I think in the next couple of years I'll finally get to Africa, and we'll spend some time in both Morocco and Cape Town. Cape Town just looks beautiful. In fact, I have a friend who works with, he's a Woo-matician now, I guess, what do you call them? Worked for WooCommerce, got acquired by Automatic, now works for Automatic, but still on Woo stuff. He's down there right now. Kevin Bates down in Cape Town, having a great time. Next place, I really enjoy, especially for our WordPressian listeners, I go to a lot of WordCamps. I love combining WordCamps with my travels. So 2 years ago, I spent 4 months in Europe, and I went over primarily for WordCamp Europe in Sofia, Bulgaria. But we did it by going to Spain for a couple weeks, then Italy for a day, then Sofia, and that was just because you couldn't get a flight to Sofia from anywhere other than Rome. Well, there's other places, but not convenient ones. Sofia for a week, and then back to Italy for a couple months. And while I was in Italy, we extended our trip by a month and discovered that WordCamp Poland was going on, Warsaw. So hopped on a plane, flew up to Warsaw, and went to WordCamp Poland, which was, I think, 90% in Polish. I think they had like 1 or 2 foreign English speakers. But it was still just a lot of fun to meet that community, all of which spoke English, just not cant talks in English. And got to spend some time in Poland freezing my butt off, because I had not planned on staying in Europe that late in the year. I think it was after Halloween. It was like early November or something. And Poland was well below freezing most of the time. So. But no, I mean, for the WordPress people, find a WordCamp somewhere around the world and go stay there for a week or 2. Is a great way to do it.
Well, not to throw us off too far, but when I first got here, I listed my spare bedrooms. I rented an apartment and listed my spare bedrooms on Couchsurfing, and I had this Polish couple come stay with me, and they cracked me up. They were the funniest people. The guy, he was this huge beast of a dude, like 7 foot and like huge, and he'd always tell me about his Uncle Google. Oh, my uncle says. Wait, your uncle? Google. My Uncle Google says, I just Googled this, and Uncle Google says that he would just crack me up with his Uncle Google comment.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's another one I recommend if you're traveling. Don't be afraid to, be picky about who you stick with or who you let in, sometimes. But definitely check out a Couchsurfing once in a while. It can be a wild ride.
Right on. Yeah, So in 2006, I left engineering, sold my house, and did a 6-month road trip across America, from California up to Washington, or up to Oregon, and then across in a Volkswagen camper van and a Vanagon. And it was a great time. Took my dog, just camping, national parks, the whole thing. Sold my house while I was on the road. Finally entered escrow after being on the market for a few months. And I got to friend's place in Pennsylvania, and then went up into Quebec, and to see a friend up there, and then was camping up there in just after Halloween, like November. Apparently, I just growing up in Southern California, it doesn't occur to me that November gets cold. In other
Yeah.
places. And so it started getting below freezing, and I was like, "What the? I'm sleeping in my van, like, you know." And so I looked up Couchsurfing, and I had a Couchsurfing profile for a little while, and that was my first Couchsurfing experience. Was staying with somebody on Prince Edward Island, which is like east off the coast of Quebec, basically, because it just got too cold to camp anymore, and completely fell in love with it. Stayed with a girl in Halifax, and it was an amazing experience to like have a local who just wanted to entertain random strange travelers. And Patrick Crossman was my host in Prince Edward Island. Still keep in touch with him. He was a ambassador for Couchsurfing for a while, like was super into it. But that was 2006, so 10 years ago, Couchsurfing. Still love it, still recommend it to all kinds of people. We hosted here in Southern California for a while. I live in a little mountain town called Idlewild, population 3,000 people, elevation 5,200 feet. In fact, there's like a half an inch of snow outside my window right now, which confuses people because it's Southern California. But it's also on the Pacific Crest Trail. So we get PCT hikers looking to couch surf for a couple days. And so someone will hike in and they just want to like lay low for a couple days. And it's a small little town. Like it's not the kind of place you can get to without a car or anything else unless you're, I guess, hiking from Mexico to here. But it's a great experience. Like I highly recommend Couchsurfing, both hosting as well as surfing. You know, I'd talk traveling forever. Sorry.
Yeah.
I can too. I actually, one of my first still live WordPress website was a travel blog. I had a few before that I just never had anything. I was just building websites because I wanted to. But the one that's still live is also a travel blog. And
cool. What is it?
This Gringo Travels.
This Gringo Travels, right?
It's pretty much retired now because this Gringo is now 1.5 Gringos with 1.5 Colombians, and we don't do a whole lot of traveling anymore. But it's still there. I still let it run.
Blogging, I think blogging is hard. Like I try. Like I set a New Year's resolution. I'm like, I'm gonna blog every week. It lasted 3 weeks. And then I missed a week, and then I missed 2 weeks, and now I've missed like 3 or something. You guys know who Chris Lemma is, right?
Yep.
Big personality in the community these days. Like that guy, like he's a friend, right? And man, he's got it down. Blogs every week. Blogs more than once a week. Every once in a while he would miss. But like I try to look to him for inspiration, but then it's like I'd rather be writing code. Like I like telling stories, but I don't like typing them out. When I put words down in a blog post, like it is painful. And it's because like I can write stream of consciousness, but then I read it and I'm like, oh my god, that's horrible. No one will want to read that. That rambling, whatever. It's like I'm talking right now, right? It just goes and goes, and I'm like, ah. So then I'm like, all right, I got to come back and edit it. But that's the least thing I ever want to do. And so then weeks go by, and I'm like, I don't want to go edit that now. I don't even remember what that blog post was about. You know? So, man, I should just do a photo blog where I just post photos. I think I could manage that.
There you go. I think you figured it out. Crack the code.
Kyle, do you blog at all?
Oh man, I have blogged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I do meetups, I go, yeah, I've got a travel blog, but I've changed the theme more often than I posted to it.
Yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. We can totally relate. So many of us out there just find it absolutely challenging, and it's one of those like, oh man, like blogging is up there with like getting in shape with like it's like a New Year's resolution cliche at this point. We all feel like we should do it.
I've tried like different topics. Like I started off blogging about my travels, right? So I blogged about the road trip and I blogged about traveling around Asia. And then I just got behind. And I liked that, but it was because my family and friends liked it. Right? And now they've all been witnessing this for 10 years. They're not as interested as they used to be. And now they're all on Facebook. Like that's where it has to be. If I want to communicate with my friends, they don't look at my blog. I wish they did. They look at my Facebook stuff, right? And so I tried blogging about like technology stuff, code, WordPress code. And that never was quite great because it's like I want to blog about the stuff that really excites me, but I'm not an expert at the stuff that excites me. So it's like I can't blog about like the techie stuff, the Vagrant, the Gulp, all that. Like I wouldn't sound like I wouldn't be helping. I theorize I wouldn't be helping anybody. That's probably imposter syndrome where I could talk about basic stuff. And then I tried talking about travel stuff, like travel product stuff, because I get excited about that. You know, Kyle saw my WordPress TV thing that I did, the WordCamp talk I did, where I talked a lot about gear, and people got so excited about travel gear, like, and carrots. And, you know, wireless or battery-operated routers and how I deal with Wi-Fi in countries that barely have infrastructure and stuff like that. And, like, I'm excited about it, but then, and people like it, but I don't know, I burn out on it. Like, I don't do a lot of it. It's just, man, blogging's hard.
I'm the complete opposite. I'd much rather write than have to, like, every time something comes up where I have to do, like, CSS, I'm like, oh, not this CSS thing. Does anybody know what that spells again?
Yeah, we've all got our challenges.
Do you guys have local meetup groups that you participate in?
Yes.
Yes. Do you help present and talk about stuff at those? How do those run?
Well, Jason's is pretty new, I think, right?
Mine is about 3 months old, so we're working on our 4th meeting right now, and I told them I'm not being in charge of this one because, like I said, we got a new kid on this. We just got here a month ago, and so somebody else needs to be in charge this month, and that means nothing has gotten done, I think. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And
So
ours
I
has
guess
been going for
I better
about
figure
4
something
years.
out. But yeah.
One in Jackson for a long time now.
Cool. I started in WordPress. One of the first things I ever did was go to a WordPress meetup group, which was in Orange County, California. And that meetup group alone has spawned at least 6 or 7 other meetup groups. Like there was that one, and then it spawned one for a while in Pasadena, a couple others in the LA region. And then when I moved to Hawaii, I started a meetup group in Maui, which has been going, I think, about 4 years now. And thankfully, when I'm not there, Chuck Burke and Eric Blair, 2 friends of mine over there, operate it, like run it, make sure it happens. It tends to be pretty beginner, basic Q&A kind of stuff, not dev-focused, developer stuff, which is good. Well, I try to make it developer stuff because I'll go in there and talk code over everybody's head, and I'll be like, it sounds interesting, but I don't know what that is. But that was really key to getting to the point where we organized the first ever WordCamp Maui last year in February of 2015, and I think we're going to try to do another one this year, later in the year. But the lead organizer will probably have to change because I think I'm going to let go of calling myself a resident of Hawaii and go full-time digital nomad for a while. So I can't be there to organize it as much as I'd like to. I'd like to do it again, but I think I got to have somebody else be the front man on it for sure. But we had a good team last year, so it should happen again.
Sure. So we're getting close to the end here. I've been covering a lot of topics and some interesting stuff. So just a couple more questions for you, Jon.
Sure.
One, I'm curious if we could look ahead at your calendar. You are the nomad, as you say. What's your schedule look like for 2016, and in particular, what kind of events can people expect to bump into you at?
Well, I'm in a weird place right now. So we're in Southern California because my wife is here to help take care of her mom, who's got to transition kind of to assisted living. And so everything, like the travel plans are kind of all on hold at the moment, pending some resolution there. And then I'm to try to make it to Pressnomics, it sounds like. I was really hoping to make it to Miami at the end of February, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm still trying to get Vienna WordCamp Europe on my schedule. The trick to that is that because of the way I tend to travel, like the logic in my head is Well, if I'm going to fly from the U.S. to Europe for WordCamp Europe in Vienna this summer, in late June, then we've got to go for a couple months because I'm not just going to go for the weekend. And then after that, I really wanted to be in Indonesia and Bali in August. So I just figured out a way to stay in Europe for a couple months and then go to Indonesia. And I keep on trying to get to a camp somewhere in Asia. I keep on hoping Bangkok. I spend a lot of time in Bangkok. We'll get together an organizing committee. They've been talking about it for years and years. My friend there, Shin, has been talking about it, but trying to get like the critical mass of community to organize it. So we'll see. So I think to answer that in a roundabout way, maybe Pressnomics, maybe Miami, because you never know. I tend to do things last minute. It's incidentally why I don't speak at a lot of WordCamps, is it's really hard for me to commit to speaking at one that far off, like when speaker submissions happen. Like I'm like, I got to make plans like 4 months out where I'm to be. Like I don't know. But I love playing like pinch hitter at WordCamps and talking last minute if somebody drops. But I think that's it. Pressnomics, Miami, WordCamp Europe. I'm trying to go to more conferences that aren't just WordPress. So my wife and I are going to Blog Her in Austin in October, which is like a women's blogger thing, and this one's focused on food. So we're going to go to that for her, and I'm going to tag along in October, I think, in Austin. And then, so we've got to be back from Indonesia by then. I know, it's never very defined. You know?
So if we get one build up down here, can we count on you speaking?
Reasonably likely.
Oh,
to
yeah?
make my wife speak in Spanish. Mine's not good enough. It's getting much better. My Spanish is getting much better, but I'm not quite fluent yet. So.
WordPress as well, or what does she do?
So she's a writer, blogger, content creator, social media stuff. She was the editor of a food magazine for a little while. She's very focused in food and the culture around food. Her blog, foodpractice.com, is all about like the community that comes together around food, like making it, preparing it, enjoying it together, that kind of thing.
Food practice?
Yeah, foodpractice.com.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm all about eating, so.
I'm a fan of eating.
Yeah.
So, John, another question for you.
Yeah.
What are some suggestions? You get around. You know a lot of people. Some good suggestions, people that we might reach out to and get on future episodes of the show.
Oh, goodness. Somebody out kind of close to you in Milwaukee. Do you know Tracy Apps? Has she been on yet?
Yeah, she was on last summer.
See? All right. See, everybody I would know, you would know.
I'm sure that's not true. That can't be.
So, I mean, the people I think of, because they're the people that are in the community, are mostly WordCamp organizers. So, Dave Rygalski, who is now organizing WordCamp Orange County, which used to be organized by Brandon and Jeff, Brandon and Dove and Jeff Zinn.
Right.
If you haven't had them on, you should. They are
schedule.
They are. Give them props from me because they are a huge mentor in my WordPress career. When I first came into the Orange County WordPress Meetup group where I met them, they have been instrumental in building my original freelance career and then everything since then. I owe them immeasurably. I can poke around the Advanced WordPress group on Facebook and find some people for you. Should try to get that. I never say his name right. Ahmed Awis. Do you know who that is?
I know the name.
He's doing some interesting stuff. He should get some more visibility than he's got.
Yeah.
Matt Cromwell.
He's on the
now our lead. Be interesting if Bastos would come out of retirement and do a show. Michael Bastos, who founded the Advanced WordPress group. Should talk to my buddy who may be organizing the next WordCamp Maui, depending on how things go, Chuck Burke.
Okay.
He's a great one to talk to. He's a lot of fun.
Great.
Who else? He's like an Adam Silver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He can talk. He can make jokes. He's just a great, funny guy to be around. I don't know. I'll try to think of people. I'll refer them over to you.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John.
Sure, been a pleasure.
Well, that just about wraps up our time. Jason, do you have anything last to say?
Nope, nothing relevant.
Yeah. Well, it's been a really fun hour. We've covered a lot of things. We had a lot of questions we didn't get to cover, but we covered some other interesting topics, and so that was pretty exciting. So, John, thank you very, very much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
To join us.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you go both at another WordCamp, maybe WordCamp Medellin.
Oh,
we're working on it.
I really hope Jason's working on that, because that will be a special event.
All right, I know you're trying to wrap, but I got to tell you, because we had somebody join the Advanced WordPress group a couple weeks ago from Ecuador, starting a meetup group over there as well.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, sorry, Kyle. I totally
No. That's
already chopped your wrap up.
That's stupid. Thank you, and we will be hanging out in person before too long, I am certain. I'll be at Pressnomics, and I don't know if you'll make it down to San Diego in a couple months or not, but
most likely, yes.
Great.
Almost never miss that one.
Let's have a good time together. We booked a nice Airbnb with a hot tub and a sauna.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I'll send pictures to you, Jason, and you can be with us in spirit. So that's episode 89. Thanks a lot, John, and you have an awesome night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.